Hello everyone, my name is Maivi. Welcome back to my channel where basically I'm reading my way through the long list for the Climate Fiction Prize. Today we have the first book of the list, the first book that I read, and the book that we're going to talk about today is the winner of the Booker Prize 2024, the book that is in every bookstore window. I'm of course talking about Orbital by Samantha Harvey. But we are not going to talk only about this book from a literary perspective in this channel. We are focusing on the Climate Fiction Prize. So what we want to know is why this book has been nominated and basically what is this book bringing to the conversation on climate change. So I acknowledge this is not by far the first video to talk about this book, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet in discussing what this book is about. Basically, it's about 6 astronauts that are in the International Space Station, and they're going around the Earth 16 times, as the International Space Station does, and I learned that from this book. And at its core, it's a very reflective book because it explores the feelings and the thoughts that these astronauts have as they look down on Earth and they contemplate the Earth in all its beauty, and they think about humanity and they think about their own lives. And it also explores basically the way that they live in the International Space Station, their routines, what it's like to live in such a place with the lack of gravity, with 24 hours in which you would see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets, and all the experiments that they do, what's the reason that they're there. And it also talks very much about their lives and how they contemplate their own past, what brought them there, their families. It's a very, very reflective novel. And before I read this novel, I heard, like many of you might have, a lot of mixed reviews. I heard people that loved it, and I heard a lot of people that didn't love it, that found it plotless and found it slow, and a lot of people that DNF'd it. And after having read it, I must admit that there is some truth to that, in the sense that it doesn't really have a lot of plot. Things do happen here, and we do things developing throughout the course of the day, but it's much more reflective and much more emotional than plot driven, for sure. And also they were saying that it's a very slow novel, and it kind of is, but in my opinion I felt like the voice of this novel was the same voice that, you know, when you go to a museum and you get this type of tour guide that is showing you a painting of their favorite painter or their favorite piece of art, and they talk about it with a lot of knowledge and a lot of devotion, and they explain about the backstory and the colors, and you know, that like slow burning passion. That's what I thought the voice of this book sounded like. That's how I read it, and that makes it slow, but it's slow because you're enjoying it. You're indulging in it. But it was actually these mixed reviews that kind of kept me from picking it up before. I was a little bit hesitant. When I heard what it was about, I thought, that sounds like something that I will really, really, really enjoy. But then, I don't know, hearing all these mixed reviews, I just didn't want to be disappointed. That was until, as many of you might have as well, I saw the Booker Prize ceremony, and I heard Samantha's Harvey speech, and I was just so blown away. I just want to read one paragraph of that speech. I'm sorry, I'm going to read from my laptop. She said, "I would like to dedicate this prize, therefore, to everybody who does speak for and not against the earth, for and not against the dignity of other humans, other life, and all the people who speak for and call for and work for peace." So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, I just want to read whatever she wrote. If I'm disappointed, so be it. But I feel like I need to read it. And to be completely honest, I was not disappointed in the slightest. I absolutely loved this book. I absolutely adored it. I found it so beautiful, so full of emotion. I had the most wonderful experience reading it. It's the type of book that I will really like to wipe it clean off my head just to read it again and to have that experience of discovering it page by page. Another thing that I really liked about this book is that it has a map of the 16 orbits that the International Space Station does around the Earth. And this book is basically, the chapters are structured following the orbits. So while they look out and while they go about their routines in space, you can see where exactly they are, what they're looking when they look through the window. And I don't know, I just loved it so much. I found it fascinating. And when you open a book and you are only in the second page of a book, and then you read a phrase that literally you want to tattoo on your skin, that means that you have discovered a very special book. And that's what Orbital is for me. I think it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, and its phrases and its words and its feelings and its images, they're stuck with me forever. So I think that's enough of me just drooling all over this book, because I just find it absolutely delicious. But yeah, basically what I wanted to discuss now is, what's the role that a book like this has, this story, this novel, what's the role that it has, in the context of the Climate Fiction Prize. Why was it nominated for such a prize? What is this bringing to the climate change conversation? And particularly with this book, there are 4 takeaways or 4 messages that I think it actually brings. Number 1 is perhaps the most obvious one, which is about admiring and appreciating the earth. We don't always have that possibility, for most of us living in cities, to actually be in the presence of the full force of nature and, nature in all its glory. It's that feeling whenever you see, maybe you go on a trip and you see a magnificent mountain, a magnificent waterfall, a magnificent lake, a magnificent landscape, that you get this sense of awe and this feeling of, oh my God, this earth is so, so beautiful. And this is what they're looking at all the time. They're looking through that window to the planet, and they are indulging in all its beauty. And if nothing else, I think that this book is a call for us to just appreciate and value the beautiful planet that we're living in. And the other thing that these astronauts are noticing when they're looking at Earth is that they don't actually see any boundaries. Borders are pretty much man-made. They're very little natural borders in the planet. So when they see the Earth, they see this one thing, this big continents where people live there, and they reflect on how these things that separate us are very much artificial. But the other thing that they also see is actual connection. They see rivers, they see roads, they see how near Alaska and Russia are. They see in which way actually Europe and Asia are this one big thing, that there's not actually divided at all. And they very much reflect on that, and how we put borders and we separate each other, but we are all together living in this big rock floating on space. The second message that I feel this book is very good in delivering is it's a message about empathy. And there's 2 ways, in my opinion, that it manages to do this very well. One of the ways, and this is very relevant to climate change, is throughout the book the astronauts, as they go around the Earth, they follow the pathway of a typhoon that is just about to hit land in Southeast Asia. And one of the astronauts, coincidentally, had been in his honeymoon, I think, or for some reason he had been on holidays in this area that is being affected. And when he was there with his wife, he befriended a local fisherman, and he had the opportunity to go to his house and have dinner with him and their children. And while he's up there looking down to this massive, massive typhoon, he can't help but thinking about this person that he knows and thinking, I wonder where is he? I wonder if he's safe. I wonder if they will survive this, if their house will be in one piece when all of this is over. And I think this is actually calling us, to make that connection whenever we see these horrible natural disaster, these catastrophes. We see the numbers, we see the damage, we see the number of people that were affected, or the number of people who lost their lives. But it's very difficult to get a sense of the human aspect of it, the individual aspect of it, what is actually happening to each one of the individuals that are going through this. And he's actually looking at the real thing. He's not looking through the screen. But I think that it's trying to make, that connection. And Samantha Harvey is trying to make us think about those human lives that are going through these catastrophes. The other way in which I think it's very good at talking about empathy is because these astronauts themselves, they are like a symbolic representation of humanity. There are 6 individuals that come from different parts of the world, each one with their own language, their own culture, their own story, their own reasons to be there. But at the same time, there's so much that they have in common. And something so beautiful that happens very early in the story is that all of them discover that when they were children, they all were big fans of Winnie the Pooh. They all watched Winnie the Pooh when they were little, and each one of them in their own country, they had a different name for the bear or for the cartoon. But I think that's so beautiful. That's a wonderful thought, and that's a wonderful way to find empathy and connection across cultures. And the third message that I found is, just as the astronauts are a representation of humanity, the International Space Station is as well a representation of Earth. The International Space Station is this vessel that is carrying them around the Earth in outer space, or rather in the outer layers of the atmosphere, just in the same way that Earth is a vessel carrying humanity all the way around the sun and around the Milky Way. And they have this very vivid notion that they are within this metallic box, and really, really close to them is space. And if this thing were to fail, what awaits for them outside of the box is nothing else than death. There's nothing there that will keep them alive. The systems within this thing that they're living in, this vessel that they're living in, is basically the thing that is keeping them alive. And they reflect so much on that, on how we so casually talk about going to Mars and colonizing Mars, like if there's just this other planet that we can just go and start living in, where for that to actually happen, we need to build artificial environments to hold us, because as it is today, we have not discovered any other planet that can actually support our life. And if those systems that we build, those artificial systems, fail at any point, we will just die, because there's nothing else that can keep us alive the way that Earth can give us the air, the water, and the food that we need to survive, the temperature, the pressure, like all the conditions that Earth has for us to live and thrive. We haven't found them elsewhere yet. So I think that's also another very, very important message. And last but not least, of course, this book talks directly about climate change. When it talks about the typhoon, it mentions the fact that yes, it is a naturally occurring phenomenon, but because of climate change, because the ocean is warmer, because this thing has picked up a lot more energy, it has become very, very strong, and it is going to cause a much greater level of destruction that it would have without climate change. It also, at some point, the International Space Station goes over the Amazon, and it's nighttime, and when they look through the window, they can see fires everywhere. And this really, really hit very close to home for me, being from Latin America, and I know that this is happening. I know the Amazon is burned, it's being burned. And this is a wonderful, wonderful ecosystem that gives us, the planet, humanity, so many environmental benefits. We need it so much, and it is so close to a tipping point of just disappearing. It is so close to that, and it seems like we are, not paying attention to it. My own country, at the moment that I'm filming this video, my own country, Argentina, is also now seeing some of the worst wildfires ever. We're not Los Angeles, so they're not talking about us, but Patagonia is burning down. And this is very also related as well with the fact that through this last year we have had our president is a climate denier, and basically the policies that protect natural areas, and also the policies and programs that prevent fires or that are there to manage fires when they happen, they have all been eliminated. And we're now living through the consequences of that, where nature is being lost, people are losing everything, even their own lives, and it seems like no one is doing anything about it, and it's very, very, very frustrating. So basically those are the 4 messages that I get from this novel. I think this is a fantastic piece of art, and a fantastic novel to be nominated and highlighted also as a piece of climate fiction. I think it brings a lot to the conversation, as I just shared with you. And also, if you are going to be reading through the long list, I think this is a fantastic book to start with, because it kind of sets the scene. This is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about beautiful, magnificent Earth and humanity on Earth, and what it means to be human in this planet. So I think that's everything for me. I really hope that you give this novel a go, that you give it a try, that you read it yourself. If you read it and you didn't like it, I hope at least you got those messages that I got, so beautiful, beautiful messages that I got out of it. That's everything from me for now, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.